we have three collectors, 125 royalty triple GOAT on card auto, a Fanatics live break that turned into a $15,000 standoff. In today's episode, we're talking with Mike, aka Coastal, who who was one of the collectors who was in the middle of all this crazy chaos and this big GOAT card that kind of made ripples in the UFC space. So, Mike, thank you for coming on the show today, and I can't wait to hear how all this stuff went down.
Yeah, Zach, thanks for having me on the channel. Big fan of the channel. I've been
Thank you.
watching, your recent videos on the card and just happy to kind of tell my side of the story.
Yeah, man. Let's get right into it. That's why we're here. That's why everybody's watching. So this was a massive card, right? And this was what really kind of got my eye was the whole three people have a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the pie. And this is something that if you're watching and you do whatnot, you do Fanatics live breaks. If you're getting a guy that has a dual or a triple, this is something you need to listen to and kind of start thinking about what your plan would be if you were to hit that. All right, Mike. So what happened with this triple?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Unless you're personally opening that box for yourself as a personal rip, there's a good chance you're going to hit that type of a card or any triple auto in a break like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm an Anderson Silva diehard fan. That's my PC. So
Nice.
when this product came out, never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be in this situation, but I was just gobbling up Anderson Silva spots wherever I could see them. And in this situation, I was working at the time and I didn't watch the break and my phone just started buzzing, just started going off from all my friends in the hobby hitting me up on Instagram and hitting me up through Fanatics saying, hey man, you need to get into this channel right now. You just hit the product hit and you're part of
Wow.
a sweat here. Are you going to go to the wheel? Are you going to randomize it? What's going on? And so that was probably at like 4 o'clock Eastern time. I didn't see these messages until like 5. So it was a couple hours went by. They already shut the stream down. So
Hmm.
I went through and started watching the replays to see like what happened. Did they just randomize the card? Like, I don't know. I'm behind. And so then I found out they, as a breaker, which was really cool for them, and it was Badger Breaks that hit it, they decided this is a big card. We don't want to just randomize it. We want all
Yeah.
of the folks who have a piece in this card to kind of get together and hash it out. So that's what we did.
Definitely. I'm so glad that if that would have honestly been a debacle and that would have been so many people, you yourself, I'm sure you would have been super mad unless you hit it, which let's talk about that. Okay, so we have
Yeah.
three people in this. You guys hit the card. You're late to even see what happens. Luckily, Badger kind of takes his time and lets you guys hash it out. So what does that look like behind the scenes? You have three people. Everybody wants the card or wants the money for the sale. So like take us through kind of the X's and O's behind the scenes of how you guys got to where you got.
Yeah, I mean, so right away, biggest card I've ever been a part of or hit. So I wanted to get the card. Personally, deep down, I wanted that card for my PC. Don't have any John Jones autos, so I really really would love to add one to the collection. And I'm a huge Anderson Silva collector, and so I thought, how can I get this card?
Yeah.
And I thought, what numbers am I going to have to throw at these other spots, the John Jones spot and the GSP spot, to get their spot either on the wheel or just to buy them outright. That was the thing. And then on top of it is, how do you get in contact with them? And so the
Mm-hmm.
show was shut down, so there was no chat. So it was communicating a lot through Fanatics Messenger, and it's a very clunky tool. You can't just DM somebody like you can on Whatnot. You have to find them in a stream and then message them. It's
Oh
it's
wow.
weird. So it was hard to find the buyers. It was very, on kind of, again, on Badger to help bring us all together in a Facebook group chat. I started talking with the GSP owner, spot owner, and we were really close to working out a deal on buying his spot. And then we finally got a hold of the John Jones spot owner, and he did not want to sell his spot.
Okay.
I offered him, sums of money, to thousands and thousands of dollars to get his spot. He did not want to sell. We talked for probably from 5 to like 8 o'clock. We talked for hours
Was
on
this a
trying to
phone
make a
call or
decision.
or just DM text back and forth?
So a little bit of both. It started with DM, text back and forth. I got on a phone call probably for 20 minutes with the GSP spot owner and had him ready to sell his slice of the wheel to me. And I would have had, 66% of the
Right.
wheel if we were to randomize. And so I thought, let's see if I can buy the other guy out. And so we finally got on a three-way call, and it was probably about a 25-minute call. And they were really kind of, bent on seeing what the ceiling was. In their mind, the ceiling was upwards of 20 plus, and I didn't see it. You know, in my personal opinion, when the card was hit, I was saying $9,000 to $12,000 in realistic, and I was offering them money based on that,
Right.
maybe even a little bit more than if it were to sell at that.
So so you get in contact with the GSP owner. Do you want to disclose monetary value, or it's fine if
Oh,
you don't want to mention,
sure.
but what kind of numbers were you talking if you do want to mention that?
Yeah, for sure. I don't mind. I'm an open guy. So, you know, GSP owner, we were looking anywhere from 2,500 to $3,000 for
Okay.
just his spot on the wheel.
Okay,
It would have,
so for
yeah,
that you would buy it out for 2,500, you would have 66%, you would then go to a wheel spin and potentially either get the card or get nothing. That was the
or
Oh my
still
gosh,
lose.
that's
That's the,
crazy, man.
yeah, yeah. It's a gamble, man,
Yeah.
and that's really what all breaks are is a
Yeah.
gamble. And you know, I'll be honest with you, I will live the rest of my life thinking about should I have spent that 2,500 or $3,000, whatever he wanted to get that and spin the wheel, because that card, if it came to me, it'd be in PC
Yeah.
forever. And so I'm gonna have to live with Zach. But you know, I offered more to the other guy. You know, I knew he had the John Jones spot. I asked him what he thought his valuation of the card was. He said 15 to $18,000 was where he
Okay.
thought the card would lie. I said 9 to 12. The GSP spot owner thought about 9 to 12 as well. And so he was okay taking that 2,500 to 3 grand, because you know, after fees, we're not all getting $5,000 a
Oh
piece on a
yeah.
$15,000 sale.
That's definitely
Um,
something I want to talk about when we get a little bit past the story is
yeah,
if y'all would have accepted the two parties and you yourself, would you guys actually have been, it would have been more beneficial for everybody involved based just on the type of fees that are associated with eBay. So you try it,
exactly.
so you're trying to buy out the Jones guy. He's thinking, 15 to 20K. He wants the upper end, which is understandable. I mean, a card like this, man, that I was talking with you before it sold. I was like, the range on this is kind of crazy. Like, it could be 12. Me personally, I was like, I think it's going to get to 15 to 20. It's on the lower end, or barely cracked 15, but kind of a tough one to really a thought exercise and a thought process to go through for everybody involved. Because like you're saying, if it's 9 to 12, then the GSP guy would have potentially been shorting himself a little bit, but you're guaranteeing that money, and it definitely could have went lower. You never know with sales like this, with these upper end sales, who's going to be bidding. Did they have the funds at that moment? Did they spend it something big on something else before? So it is kind of crazy in that sense. Okay, so you're talking with Jones guy. You can't get the deal done. So you guys all three decide you're gonna put it up for auction. What was kind of that process like, and were y'all nervous about it selling?
Ooh, I was super nervous. I'm still nervous about the whole process because I have not received funds yet as of today. So that's just throwing that out there.
Yeah,
Still, until that hits my PayPal
right.
account, I will be on edge. But yeah, no, super nervous. But the Jones owner, you know, I don't know if he's a big UFC collector. You know, the
Okay.
thing you have to understand about breaks, and maybe you're already familiar with this, or but the community should know, is we have in our community people who collect heavily and buy into breaks because they want a PC Anderson Silva or
Yeah.
John Jones or whoever. There are people who buy in on release days to try to hit those one-on-ones, to try to get those big cards in that community, whether it's football, basketball, MLB, Star Wars, even, just to
Hmm.
get that big card and then flip it. They're in it to flip it. They're in it to try to chase a bag of money and on to the next chase. And I think the Jones owner was kind of more on that side, to be honest with you. And he was ready to go, like, hey, this is the way we do this auction. The ceiling, you know, I've talked to people, I think the ceiling is, he thought upwards of 20 to 30. I knew that wasn't the case. And he said, you know, we're going to run the auction Thursday night at 6 p.m. We're going to run it for 10 days. So it ends on Sunday when people are, you know, sitting around. And, you know, he was wanted eBay. He's like, let's go to eBay. We don't want to go to gold. That was the other conversation we had. Do we go to
Yeah,
eBay
yeah.
or do we go to Golden? The piece about Golden was Badger Breaks would have to ship it to Golden, and you know,
Oh, okay.
when that
Yeah,
leaves their
some risk
facility,
involved.
some risk involved. And you know, the I think you if you recall last year, I think it was, no, it was Fanatics, the one triple or the double auto of Dana and Bruce last year.
Mm,
I think that sold on Fanatics for 8,000. But we were worried about the promotion at Gold. Could
right.
they really promote the card? And you know, what would the fees look like there? Those two guys, the other buyers, were really kind of sold on eBay. I was still in this weird spot, man, when they were talking about it. Like,
Yeah.
I want this card more
Right.
than I want to breathe air. Like, I want
Yeah.
it so bad. And you know, I thought about going to the wheel. Like right when they were like, let's just go to eBay, I was like, you sure you guys don't want to go to the wheel? Like I would hate to random a card like this, and they didn't really want to either. But that's how bad I wanted it, and and then we decided, or they decided, it was kind of two against one at that
Right.
point of, hey, we're selling this thing. When the Jones owner got on the phone with the GSP owner, his talk about the ceiling kind of
Yeah.
changed that GSP owner's
Influenced it a
tune of
little bit.
2,500. Yeah, yeah. He's like I think he got in his ear and said, hey, he's offering you 2,500, 3,000. You know, our ceiling could get us 10,000 each. Like that. And
Yeah.
when you hear that, the GSP owner's like, you know what, let's wait this thing out,
Yeah. I
or
mean,
let's auction it.
it's a legitimate thought process. Like you never know with some of these cards. I mean, we've had some monster sales in the UFC card space within the last year or two. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibility that this could have hit 30,000. Man, I'll tell you what. After talking to a lot of people about what they thought this card would go to, there's a lot of people that thought it would be in the 20 to 30
Yep.
range. Honestly, right in the middle. So definitely not a bad thought process. Okay, so just to recap before we move on into some other topics, you could have potentially you got 3K. You could buy out the GSP spot. The Jones guy would have been asking about 10. 8 to 10, so you would have been like 12 to 13K into this in order to pocket the card. Is that kind of around what you were calculating, or what?
So I offer, when the Jones spot owner said he valued it at 15 to 18, I said to him right then and there, how about five today? I'll give you five
Okay.
now today. And that
And
and
that's
right
a
now
healthy cash offer.
it's a healthy
No
cash offer, and
fees.
it's no fee. It's better than where he's going to end up
Yep.
after this is all said and done. And he's got to think about that, and I hope he does, because I offered him five today, and he said when I offered him five, his valuation went from 15 to 18 to 30, 20 to 30. He's like, well,
Oh,
actually, it could
okay.
be 20. So he really didn't want to sell, and he just kept kind of bumping the goalposts. And so, that's when I was like, all right, well, now you're out of my range. And I couldn't, I got, at the end of the day, I could have bid on the card, I could have went
Yeah.
after it, and but I just didn't, out of my price range. And so I
Yeah.
made my offers when I had the chance, before the wheel even happened, or before the auction even happened.
Nice,
Yep.
man. Hey, you shot your shot. It sounds like you fought hard for this card. That's really all you can. That's all you can do, right? You talked to
Yep.
the GSP guy. You sounds like he was ready to make a deal. You talked to John Jones. Sounds like he was ready, was somewhat ready to make a deal, but then kind of moved it on you, which honestly is understandable. This is a tough situation, and that's why I
It
wanted to
is.
have you on the channel today, so people can kind of, because I know a lot of people buy into breaks, and like odds are some people are going to hit cards like this in the future. Start thinking about what your plan is. Are you going to buy people out? Are you a gambling man? Are you going to wheel spin? Which personally, I would never do that, dude. That is crazy. But it could have paid off big, and you could have pocketed the card, but the risk is too high for that. Okay, so we're on eBay. It sells for 15K. Sells for 15, a little bit over 15K. Very solid. 57 bids. We got action all the way up, all the way down. It kind of stalled out on. I think I messaged you right around maybe 10 grand or 12
Yeah.
grand, and was like, hey man, like this thing's pumping a little bit, and then it kind of stalled a little bit, and then right at
Yep.
the end it finally hits. So we know eBay takes a 13% fee. You have to do the taxes, or the buyer has to pay taxes for that as well, so they're definitely on the hook for a significant amount of money as well. Do you know kind of ballpark what you're going to, have you already calculated kind of what you're going to be pocketing, all three of y'all, from this?
I haven't. I don't know the exact fee. I think they were taking, Badger was talking about taking, giving us 95%, and
Okay.
taking only 5% for their fees and taxes. And then, of course, the eBay percentages. So I haven't crunched the numbers yet. I want to hear, that he's paid. The buyer, apparently, I have an idea on who the buyer is. I don't want to say it unless I'm 100%, but
Yeah.
I've had a lot of friends in the community. It's a small community, telling me this guy's been in whatnot chat saying, "Hey, I bought the 101 triple auto. I never thought it would go that cheap, and I'm so excited to get the card." He actually, in a break, according to some friends, is in that same break he was talking about how he just bought the card that Sunday. He hit another one
Oh,
to 10,
wow. Wow.
and then he
Okay.
bought out, in the
Yeah.
chat. He bought out the other two spots $2,000 a piece. So he
Nice.
spent 4K to seal the deal for the 10, and then he was talking about how excited he was for the 101. But I have yet, last I spoke with Badger, he has till the first of the month, which is coming up here, March 1st, to pay. And so apparently he's got auto pay on, and that'll happen on the first. I've never heard of something like that, but that's kind of where I'm at. I haven't crunched those numbers yet. I'm
Yeah.
still nervous, Zach. I'll tell you that, but I
I
would think it's a
yeah.
better part of 4 grand. I would think.
Nice. I mean, that's still a solid. So what was your buy-in? I didn't even mention that at the top of the show. What'd you buy in
Yeah,
for Anderson Silva?
I believe it was $18 a case.
Bang, dude, $18. Look at him now. The percentage on that is astronomical. It's got to be thousands of a percent. 18 to 4 grand. Well, congratulations, man. I mean, it's all very,
Thank you.
very stressful, obviously, but that's a huge come up. Any plans for that 4 grand? Are you going to put that towards a single? Maybe a divide it, do some breaks, do some singles. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, you did a video about a year ago. I can't remember the title, but it was like the five things you need to stop doing
Oh yeah.
to your. It's a great video. If anybody hasn't seen it, go back and watch it. It's great information, great tips in there. Because I'm still relatively new to the card hobby, really. I mean, I started collecting in 2024 midnight was when I really got into it,
Nice.
which is only about 2 years. So I've learned a lot, and breaks are definitely more of that gamble. They're fun. You have a chance of hitting that 101, and the chase is electric. But with this 4 grand, I've now and being in the hobby for 2 years, I've realized if I take this 4 grand and sink it back into breaks, I'm gonna
Yeah.
come out in the negative. You know that, I know that. Anybody watching this show
Mhm.
should probably know that if you've been in breaks. So I'll probably chase a grail card that I have
Nice.
been maybe eyeballing on eBay. There's some Anderson Silva rookie autos I would love to try to get my hands on. Like I said earlier, love to get a John Jones auto in the PC. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm definitely going to probably look at buying a nice juicy single on eBay over sinking it into more breaks.
I love that, man. I love to hear you say that. And as long again, I'm all about like you need to have strategies, you need to have rules implemented because this is a very psychological thing, right? Like our monkey brain likes the risk, it likes the gamble, especially as males. I think there's studies around where we're more risk taking when it comes to finances and things. And like while that's okay and while it is fun, and I'm who am I to tell people, to not have fun, but it's also kind of dumb if you're using all your funds to do that, right? So like set a small portion aside, have fun with that, speculate with that. But at the end of the day, we're trying to have a badass collection, man, and using that to go get a John Jones rookie auto or something. You are always gonna like that card, I promise you. Versus the 5, 10 minute, 30 minute fun of watching a break and then you hit something low or a skunk. So
Hmm.
I'm very happy that you mentioned that, and everybody watching, thank you for the plug. Go check out that old video, and also start thinking of some rules and some parameters to set on yourself when it comes to breaking and just speculating in general. Before we hop off this topic, you guessed around 17,000, and this was like months ago when they first announced this card. So I think that's hilarious, and you're pretty close, man.
Yeah, I wasn't far off. I was trying to be goofy with my number here, but when I saw that card, never in my life did I think I'd be a part of the sale or a part of the pool. I knew
Yeah.
I'd chase Anderson Silva, but never thought it'd be me. So that's hilarious.
Yeah, man, so specific. 6'4", 82, right on the money with it. So you guys hit this on Fanatics Live, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I kind of want to go over, I personally have not really been a part of Fanatics Live at all. It maybe is something that I will do in the future. Every now and then I frequent whatnot, but I'm really just a lurker. I don't ever really buy in. I just like to look at what the cards are, see what things go for, more like research and just having fun than anything else. I don't necessarily participate. So, what are your thoughts on, Fanatics Live versus whatnot? The platform and the UI seem somewhat similar from just the homepage, but I haven't necessarily bought in to any or been in those lobbies. So, what are your thoughts on those two sites and buying platforms?
Yeah, man. I mean, definitely the two biggest. I think Whatnot's probably a little bit bigger in terms of people being familiar with their platform. Similar concepts. Fanatics Live is specific to sports cards. I know on Whatnot you could get clothing, shoes,
Yeah.
anything on Whatnot, but it's on Fanatics. It's specific to cards, because Fanatics owns Tops, and so that's really what they're focused on. But I would say, check both of them out. I will tell you there's pros and cons to using both platforms. I think, in my personal opinion, the UFC community or the UFC footprint is larger on Whatnot. You're going to have a larger pool of dedicated UFC breakers on Whatnot. So I think because of that, more folks kind of gravitate to using Whatnot to buy into UFC breaks or even singles. I
Yeah.
run my single shows selling, the cards that I have doubles of or hitting breaks that I don't want on Whatnot in a single
Okay.
show. So I think it's a better platform for something like that. Fanatics, though, I think is on the come up. 2 years ago, Fanatics was not in the position they are now. And I think 2 years from now, they're going to be in a whole different type of position because I really think Tops and Fanatics are trying to strategize where they want their products ripped on their live
Right.
platform.
Yeah.
You know,
They get a
I don't know if
cut.
you,
They get a cut not only of the manufacturing and selling, but also, you're getting the fees associated and the cut from selling on that specific platform. So that's a double dip for them. A little bit scary because you know how it is with companies, man. They'll do anything for the bottom line. So are we going to see, and I personally, I don't think we've necessarily seen how we've seen in other sports where the companies are pushing the big product hits to their specific sites. But I mean, if they really get into the game, maybe we do start seeing all, and across our fingers, we don't, all the big cards being hit on Fanatics Live.
I mean, I sometimes I was telling a buddy of mine, I said it makes me wonder how
Yeah.
this in this same just Zach, I don't know if you saw the break, but in this same box was the Islam 101 auto.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
So, and then
That's
in the
pretty
box
crazy.
after that was another, I don't know who was another 101. So
So
two boxes,
the
three
case is just
101s.
crazy. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, if I'm working at Tops, where do you think I'm sending that?
Yeah, right.
So it makes you question things, but and you're forgetting also on the back end, like as much as that card was awesome to hit on Fanatics Live, Fanatics really would have promoted it and loved if we sold it on Fanatics Auction and sold
Oh,
it
yeah.
through their platform. They want a piece of every side of it. They want to
Hmm.
manufacture the cards and sell the cards to the breakers. They want the cards broken on their platform on Fanatics Live, and they want to see the cards sold on Fanatics, site where you can buy singles. And so, yeah, they're trying to get their hand in a little bit of everything. And I think because Tops has all the licenses, they're going to be able to make some waves in the live selling space, like Whatnot. Whatnot did $8 billion, I think, last year in live selling.
Yeah, that's
Obviously, not
crazy.
all of that's cards, but yeah, I think Tops wants a piece of that, and Fanatics.
Yeah, that's one thing that I probably need to up my game on. This is I know multiple people that whenever they look for cards, they look on eBay, they look on Golden, they look on Fanatics, all the auction sites, which is honestly the best way to do it. Me personally, I feel like I always, like 95% of the time, I'm just looking on eBay, and you can miss a lot of big cards. And some of those other auction platforms, at least right now anyway, and we're speculating Fanatics Live will probably pick up, and I think that's probably true, and their auction platform will probably pick up as well. But there's probably less competition on Golden for UFC cards. There's probably less competition on Fanatics auction platform for UFC cards. So honestly, not necessarily a bad strategy if you want to have less competition for whatever card is up for auction. Do you frequent those auction sites as well, or do you just kind of use eBay?
Yeah, no, I frequent all of them. I think I hate to give away my secret, but I think it's best to shop around. I
Yeah.
think as a UFC community, sometimes we get too focused on one area. Like I
Yep.
just buy on Whatnot from this one streamer,
Hmm.
and that's great. Yeah, I love to support breakers. I have a lot of friends that are breakers and streamers, but I think it's best for you as a shopper, just like it's best not to sink my $4,000 just into breaks. It's best to shop around. It's best to check out eBay for your singles. eBay does breaks too now. You can buy a
Yeah.
spot on eBay and watch an eBay live break. eBay live is now a thing trying to compete with Whatnot. Whatnot breaks, Whatnot singles, Fanatics, Golden. I think it's best to shop around, especially when it comes to breaks. Kind of going back to the breaks, not every breaker is going to charge the same amount for their Anderson Silva spot. And one
Yes.
thing I noticed, I was paying 17, 15 to $18 a spot for Anderson Silva on release day. When that card got pulled, I couldn't find him under $25 a spot. And it
Mm,
was wondering like why the biggest card got pulled. Why did breakers up that? Because I think a lot of breakers or a lot of folks who are in the community, we're seeing that hey, this is a card that's over at $10,000 now. Like this to pay for his spot, it should be more than $18.
yeah. Yeah, the fluctuation is, and that's kind of an interesting thing. And I don't know if this is still out there. I know there was actually an index that was tracking specific breakers and like their price. I don't know if it was per product or per fighter, how they were tracking it, or maybe it was a weight class. But there was a specific page that I saw doing that. I don't know if that's still a thing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, somebody that provides that information, and then another provider of, I think his name is NVO on Instagram. He provides the 101 tracker, which is, if you're buying into breaks, you need that. You
Yeah,
need that
yeah,
to
yeah,
know what's out there because, like, to buy into a break, you're hoping to hit that 101. If you spend a lot of money on a big spot and you hit a, out of 99 base card, you're not covering your spot
yeah.
price. And you need to know what's available in the product, what hasn't been pulled. It's hard to track that information. So yeah, there's people out there that show you kind of average spot prices as well as, the what 101s, what big cards have been pulled for your guy.
Yeah, definitely some great information for people. Shop around, uh, look at other sellers, make sure, maybe there's a specific person that you love to break with. But if they're way more expensive, I mean, maybe you should go with somebody else, depending on how high that price is. Mike, love the story, man. Thank you so much for coming on and
Yeah.
talking to us about that. Let's get into some other topics here. So you're a collector. I always like to know what people enjoy collecting, what they're kind of valuing that they think is slept on. So first, let's talk about what are two of some of your favorite cards.
Yeah, and my PC, two of my favorite cards. One of them has to be my Anderson Silva 101 auto from Midnight, 2024 Midnight. The reason being, this is the first 101 I ever hit, and it was the first product I really got into for UFC. I never knew
Nice.
UFC had cards until 2024. That's how late of the game I am. And so when I hit this card, I completed the rainbow, and it's going to
Oh
be in my
wow,
PC forever. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. And this was in a break as well.
this was in a break as well. Yeah, with
Wow,
the
dude,
rainbow.
you're killing it on the breaks, man.
I'm lucky. To piece together the rainbow, that was all fine singles. Like
Okay,
if
gotcha.
I were just to buy into breaks, hoping to hit the out of five
Yeah,
or the out of
yeah, yeah,
12, like I'm gonna be chasing. And
yeah.
so
The
I bought the
odds
rest
are
of it.
low.
So
Nice. You had
yeah,
mentioned being late to the party with UFC, and that, we got to look at the big picture, man. We're still in the infancy. I'm bad at math, but 2009, we're in 2026. That's not a lot of time. That's like 15 or 16 years. So while and I felt the same way when I kind of got in 21, 22. I was like, oh man, but like we're not late, and I still do in my deepest heart of hearts think that we are still very early in this space. And a card like the one that you were a part of, that 1 of 1 in other spaces, and I did a video on this recently. That's a six-figure card easy. That's
yeah,
$100,000 card easy. And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility for these 1 of 1s, those huge cards. We talked about some John Jones, Anderson Silva, grails, like for those to really pick up steam in the next like 15 to 20 years.
yeah. I think you're spot on. I told one of my buddies, I bet 5 to 10 years, somewhere in that 5 to 10 year window, I think we see that 101 triple auto sell again for closer to 50.
Oh
I
yeah.
call me
Yeah.
crazy.
No,
I
I,
mean,
I
I was
agree.
on the low end. I was saying 9K was the number. So I'm a low end person, and I think it could reach that, with those three names on there.
And not to mention, and we don't necessarily factor this much into the secondary market, with which maybe we honestly should a little bit more. But those boxes are selling for $800 to $1,000. Like for a product hit to go for 15,000, and a box cost $800 to $1,000. That's honestly like a great buy in my opinion for whoever has the funds to buy that. And I think at the upper end of these UFC cards, that really is where you're gonna see. I wish I had more funds, man, because I really think that is where you're going to see a lot of people just XXX their money, because those are the cards that the percentage change might be the same, right? But the percentage of 15,000 versus 50 is like a lot more, a drastic
Yeah.
difference in money in your pocket. And I do think that a lot of these cards, the 1 of 1s, the first autos, the true rookies, like I think they are going for a little bit lower than they should comparatively, not only to other sports, but also to the prices of these boxes.
Yeah, I agree. I think I asked one of my friends, you asked me a good question before we got on this of like, what do I think's undervalued? And I think that's a great question. I asked one of my buddies, hey, what do you think, man? And he said, all UFC cards. That was his
Yeah.
answer. And because he's a 30,000 foot view guy where he's like, looking at the hobby from 2009 to now, like you were saying, we're still early on. We're still early on. Maybe it won't get to the levels of an
Yeah.
NBA or an NFL, the triple autos we see there selling for hundreds and millions of dollars, but we have a lot of room for
Yep.
growth. To that, I think there's a lot of areas in our hobby that have cards that are greatly undervalued.
Yep, that's a topic we're gonna get into next, and I can't wait to hit on that. What was the second favorite card in your
Oh
PC?
yeah. So this one again, very lucky to see. This is a funny story. This one I technically lost this one on a wheel spin. It's a booklet from 2025 Knockout, the quad auto booklet with GSP, Jose Aldo, Daniel Cormier, and of course Anderson Silva. I had the
Nice.
Anderson Silva spot. One of my best friends had the cheapest spot, and it was Jose Aldo. I think it was a $10 spot in the case.
Wow.
He hit it on the wheel. They randomed it between the four of us on the wheel, and he hit it. And he's a local friend here. And I said, you know, I'll be standing at your mailbox waiting
Yeah,
for that
right.
card. You can take anything out of my PC that you want. I need to take this card home.
That's awesome. What
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
mind disclosing the details on that trade or on that sale? What ended up transpiring there?
Yeah, so he's a big Izzy collector. So I gave
Nice.
him, you know, he might not like this, but I gave him a redemption Izzy to 10 auto from last year's royalty. Izzy has not signed last year's royalty. There's a lot of fighters
Still?
that have not signed. Yeah, a lot of
Oh,
Raul
wow. Okay.
Rosas hasn't
That
signed. Yeah,
sucks.
a lot. So I gave him that. It's still waiting on getting fulfilled, but they said they're reprinting the cards. I gave him a Chuck Liddell 5 of 5 auto from
Ooh,
royalty.
nice.
Um, I think that was it. I think I gave him those two cards for that booklet. He
Nice.
wasn't attached to the booklet. He has
Yeah.
$10 invested into it. He knows I'm an Anderson Silva diehard, and
Yeah,
that booklet will never leave the PC.
that's cool, man. He kind of hooked you up with the bro deal, but you also gave him a sick Izzy and then a really low Iceman Chuck Liddell, who I think is a
Yep,
guy that is going to pick up more steam over time. Now that we have the Paramount deal, I was going back and watching a bunch of OG vintage fights. Dude, Chuck Liddell was the man
incredible.
back then. And you kind of
Yep,
forget that. You see him,
yep,
at events and he's just an old man now, but like back in the day, that guy was a stud and he put on some amazing performances.
for sure.
Okay, one of my favorite things to talk about people is cards in areas that you think are potentially slept on. I'm really a value guy whenever it comes to things. I like to find things that I think are cool, that look good, that will be collectible long term, but that also I think are kind of undervalued in the market. And that's really the sweet spot where I just love to collect cards. So what, in your opinion, is undervalued right now that you really enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said earlier, you could make the argument everything in the UFC hobby is undervalued, and you know, I think there's some argument there, but really, when I drill into just recently
Hmm.
products that I've seen recently that I think I'm seeing cards sell that are pretty undervalued. I look at Gold Label.
Okay.
I think the case hits and the short prints from Gold Label, the Art of Fightings, the gold splatters. I think those are you can find them on eBay. Look around, everyone, and you can find them pretty cheap on eBay. And for the print run, I think it's a good price. They're also very appealing to the eye. Like, look at that card.
Yeah,
You
it's
know that
beautiful,
Max
man.
Holloway's. That's a beautiful card, and
Yeah.
the quality of Gold Label isn't that bad. You know, we've seen some quality issues a lot with tops this year, and I think Gold Label really, when you analyze it, it grades well. If you check out some of the grading on Gold Label, it's a lot of nines and tens. So I think a lot of these cards that are short prints and case hits are undervalued because they're printed on this paper stock. It's
Yeah.
not chrome, it's not midnight, it's not royalty, and so people just completely undervalue. I mean, you can still get a box of Gold Label really cheap and have a chance of hitting one of these, and or just buying a single on eBay really cheap.
Yeah, it's always interesting whenever we get a debut product, right? Like to me, that's the most polarizing that a product is ever going to be whenever it first comes out. You have a lot of people that snap judgment and basically are kind of just closed minded before we get any details, right? Like I'll do a video,
Yeah,
they give us 5 images. They give us 5 images out of like the entire product, and I'm talking about them, and I'll have people like, "This product is trash. It's the worst product I've ever seen." It's like, okay, I understand you don't like these images. There's gonna be a lot of other cards in this,
yeah,
and so I think the Gold Label is a really good example where when it first came out, there's a lot of people that didn't like it. They hear paper cards, they don't like it. Me in particular, I saw a couple of the actual like just screenshots that they gave us, the actual like promo, and the Art of Fighting was one in particular. It looked horrible in what they gave
mm,
us. I actually
yeah,
hit one of these in hand, and I was like, "This is actually a really nice card." Like in
yep,
person, in hand, and like this photo can kind of tell you, it does look a lot better than sometimes we imagine it will whenever they give us the stock photos online. I
yep,
love case hits, man. That's another thing that I really enjoy. Um, And with the odds that that Topps has given us or not given us this year in
Yeah.
2025, which is insane. Everybody needs to be blasting their emails. We're the only space, Mike, when I get on there, I look at all the other odds sheets. We're like one of the only areas that doesn't have odd sheets for like the entire year, basically. It pisses me off, dude. And it should
Me
piss
too.
everyone else off as well.
Yep. Yep. I agree. That's it's a travesty to have that happening in the hobby. We need to know what our odds are, what we're buying into, our print runs. You know, some fighters you assume that they signed like in royalty, they all signed to 99. Some were only to 49. How do we know
Yep.
that? You know, like we need to know these things and give us that insight. It's just definitely lack of quality control on Topps part, I would say. But back to that art of fighting real quick. You know,
Yeah.
those I believe if you look at the odds, I think we got an odd sheet there. I think they were like every two cases, you know, so like
Yeah.
that's a pretty short print run. I think the gold splatters were about one per case, but yeah, I mean, I thought so too. I think it was when I saw the art of fighting the first time, it was Bo Nickel,
Yep.
and he
That
was taking
uh-huh.
someone's back, and that was the card. I was like, this is terrible. I do not
Yeah.
like this card at all. And now I've got a couple art of fightings, but yeah,
Yeah, I think it's interesting how they have each specific discipline too. They have, I think I've seen
yes,
kickboxing, Muay Thai, wrestling. I think there's a maybe a jits or a grappling one, which I think is pretty fun. I do
yep,
like that just as like a broad macro design, like the art of fighting, what the specific techniques that fighter uses. I think that's a really cool idea, and I hope that we see another iteration of this if they give us gold label in 2026, because I think that would be pretty sick. And I love the cheaper rips, man. Gold label, I thought Stadium Club was really fun. The buy-in price at the low 100s, 120, 130s.
mm-hmm.
I think that's a really nice sweet spot for us right now and where we're at. And people can have a rip. It's really low stakes. You have the short prints, you have, the guaranteed autos and whatnot. But if you get skunked, you're probably going to get half your value back because the buy-in is so low. So I
Yeah,
personally really liked Gold Label, and I was really happy that that was your answer, because that's one that it slept on, and I was kind of sleeping on it, and I'm gonna probably do a little bit more research and see if maybe there's a specific checklist or specific card that I really enjoy from Gold Label, and maybe get one of those for the PC.
awesome, yeah, good strategy.
All right, dude. We're deep in the video, but we got more to talk about, y'all. And you kind of mentioned that a topic that you wanted to hit on, which was the quality control from this year's royalty. And go ahead, before we kind of get into the big view of the QC issue. What did you think of 25 royalty just as a product overall? Were you happy with it? Again, the drop that they gave us with EQL, I don't know anybody that got that. The price is astronomical. I'm trying to separate that, man, from like the actual cards, which I think are pretty fun. So what did you think about royalty, just macro view?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it there. The price point is insane right now. I don't think it's worth it to buy a box at $1,000, but very hard to make your money back. I didn't get in the EQ as well. Tried, didn't succeed. Overall, I like royalty. You know, royalty is the premium product, as we all know in the UFC space, and so because of that, there's a lot of aspects that I love about it. Triple autos, booklets, dual autos. I love the acetates. I
Yeah.
love the look of those cards. They stand out. Same with last year, the acetates from last year, but this year they stand out a little bit more this year. I think I like them better than last year. But yeah, to the quality control issue and back to the original point of this is our premium product.
Hmm.
I've seen a lot of cooked edges. I've seen a lot of and specifically Zach, it's where there's color on the edges. The
Yeah.
color is
Yep.
chipped.
That's
It's
always the
very.
issue.
It almost reminds me of Knockout a little bit.
Hmm.
Like it gives you that Knockout vibe where you kind of when you open a box of Knockout, not every card's going to be perfect. This one's bad. He's bad.
Yeah.
The bottom left corner is just look at that. Like that looks chewed up or got wet or something.
Yeah, it's
But
sad because this is a nice design, a great card, man. Like you'd be so hyped to
beautiful.
hit one of this, and then you come in and you kind of see some of the edges and the dings. But no,
Yeah.
I'm glad you hit on that, because that's kind of what I was gonna touch on. Is whenever you have like Panini did Immaculate, right? And Immaculate, almost all the cards were white. And what that does is it really hides the bad edges and the bad corners on these cards, because these thick cards, man, they're so dinged up and easily hurt. And these are almost all on card autos. So I was gonna pose the question to you: is this even possible to not like, you're gonna have some of this, right? With shipping these to fighters, having them sign, having them handle, and having them ship back. Is it possible to fix this? Would you rather see less color on the edges, on the corners? Like what's your message to Tops? Can we fix this, and how would you fix it?
Yeah, put me in a room with Tops for a little bit. And so- but I think there is room to fix. Look at this situation this year as a hobby, we can't have our cake and eat it too. And what I mean by that is last year, a lot of people complained that the Topps royalty product was too plain. There wasn't
Yep.
enough color, wasn't enough foil. I think Topps hears these things and they say, okay, here, hold my beer. And they go hard on the color and hard. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've seen the booklets this year. It's just all foil. It's like one
Yeah.
piece of foil you're opening up. I think it's ugly for the out of 25s, but I think they went a little overboard, almost like they did with Midnight this year. Some of the Midnight cards, you can't even read the names; they're just too
The
they
lettering
pop
is
too
kind of
much.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think sometimes Topps overdoes things, and I think because they may have heard feedback last year that because royalty last year did not have these issues. I can't find a royalty card that has that type of issue, and it's because I think there's less coloring. So I think maybe Topps heard maybe some complaints from the community. Hey, we want more coloring, we want more foil, we want this product to pop, and they accommodated that while also the community wants on card autos, and
Yep.
with that comes fighters,
Yeah.
big hands shuffling these cards around.
Yeah.
Cards have to get shipped. What everything that goes into having an on card auto signed is going to damage the card. So I would say I would just tone it down a little bit. In the color and the foil. I think find a happy medium between last year's royalty and this year's, and we wouldn't have the quality control issues that we said. There's always a chance of some, but this
Yeah.
year it's again, it gives me knockout vibes with some of these cards because a lot of people complain about the quality of knockout and it being obviously a lesser price point than royalty. With the price point difference between
Yeah.
knockout and royalty, I think a knockout box is what, like 250 maybe, and a
Mhm.
royalty box is 1,000. You're gonna get better quality, but you also could get that Izzy there that you showed with the cooked
Yeah.
corner, and that'd be the best hit in your box.
Yeah, man. I mean, we know the print run on this is relatively small. Almost all the autos are of 99. Like you mentioned earlier, we saw a couple floating around with of 49s. And then the print run altogether, I want to say off the top of my head, which this is probably not accurate, but I think it was like 136 or like 150. It was below somewhere in that range. So it's honestly very small. I guess maybe how to fix this is you have a Topps representative like there, but that's a ton of manpower, a ton of labor. That's probably not efficient for this type of checklist. 100 fighters. How are you gonna monitor 100 fighters doing this? That would kind of be the only thing I could think of is have eyes on the product and be like, hey, just sign it. I'm gonna touch it. Don't touch it. Just sign it. So you don't have the shuffling or I don't know if you saw the leak of there was a foot that Carlos Prates or a card that Carlos Prates had signed that like was on his actual foot. It was like he
I
was
did
like
not see
he was
that.
in his living room signing cards, and there was a picture of the card in the background like on his foot, which it must have just fell, and he just kept signing. But yeah, you could potentially avoid those issues. But you're completely right, man. A $800 box, a $900 box, like they have to give us a little bit better quality. I understand some of them are going to be like this. Personally, I really liked the more foil. I liked the more decadent cards. I liked the color. As far as design goes, I think this year was better than last year for royalty. But as always, right, we want our cake, we want to eat it too. Maybe there's a happy medium here. Maybe we have the fighters maybe try and get them to take a little bit more care of it, which probably impossible to do. I love the on card autos. Personally, I would take a beat up edge and have it be on card versus a sticker auto for this price point. A sticker auto would almost guarantee that this card is in perfect condition, but to me that's definitely not as cool.
No, I totally agree. This card needs to be or this product needs to be on card. Yeah, I do like the design better than last year. I think overall, I do think it's a better product than last year, like design wise, and I think the triple autos are better names than last year in terms of who's on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the cards that I saw definitely were not the same quality level that was in last year. But again, like you said, we want better designs, we want more foil, and with that comes this window of opportunity for things to get damaged or flake or
Yeah.
peel or whatever happens.
For sure, man. So we talked about some products here, and I'm curious to pick your brain. Of the 2025 products, they're over completed. What is the one product that we had this year that you hope they do again in 2026? What was your favorite product and you hope they repeat it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the second year of Tops now, right? And
Yep.
so I've talked to my friend in detail about this. My favorite product is probably Midnight. I hope they continue Midnight. Um, at the same time, if we look at least this past 2 years of Tops licenses, and if we look at it and try to project what is coming in 2026, we're gonna probably get the same because we got the same in the past 2 years. We're gonna get a Chrome, we're gonna get a Finest, we're gonna get a Midnight, we're gonna get a Knockout, we're gonna get a Royalty, and then there's that product that has changed both year
Yeah.
or in the past 2 years, Gold Label and Stadium Club. I think we're gonna see something similar in 26. I think we're gonna get the flagship products, and then maybe something with the new debut patches is maybe it's a whole new product that we're going to get, or a throwback product. But for me personally, I love Midnight. I hope they continue that in 26. I hope they tone down some of the coloring a
Yeah.
little bit. It was too neon. I couldn't read some of the names, but again, like I loved how they made that product better in from 24 to 25 by going on card. 24, that Anderson
Yeah.
Silva, as much as I love that card, it's a sticker. And so I like the fact that they went to on card, and the quality didn't go down, with the Midnight from 24 to 25. But I'm also a big fan of Knockout. Love Knockout, love the booklets, love the on card autos, even with some of the quality control. And then, of course, Royalties, that flagship. So those are the three big ones that I hope they continue with this Tops license.
Nice. Yeah, I think we definitely see at least two of those, right? I think Chrome is guaranteed. We've already seen leaks of Chrome. I've already seen leaks of Knockout. I don't think I've seen anything else off the top of my head. So I know for sure we're getting those two. I also want to say, and this is not a guarantee, it's just speculation. Looking back at other sports, the debut patch cards were in a Chrome product. So I
Okay.
would go to assume that our first drop of the year, we're getting debut patch hunts, and I can't wait to see those pop up. I can't wait to cover
Wow.
those sales. I know they're going to be bonkers for some of the big rookies that we get in 2026, and excited to see what that does. I'm sure you're going to be out there putting in a few bucks trying to hit one of those on the breaks, huh?
Yeah, I mean, man, getting into breaks, it is very similar to gambling, and the gambler's mindset is all over the place sometimes. And I've told my friend, told a couple of friends in the hobby, I'm next year, 26, I'm only focusing on if they have Midnight, Knockout, and Royalty, the three big ones. I can't keep degenerating into
Yeah.
spending all my money on these smaller products. I'm going to, of course, Zach. It's that's just all talk. And then when the product is out and I see Charles Oliveira spot price, or Anderson Silva, I'm definitely gonna chase my guys. I love Charles, I love Anderson, I love Max, Joe Pfeiffer, Sean Brady. Those are the guys, Bo Nickel, that I like to chase. And so yeah, I'll definitely be getting some spots. I'm not a big rookie hunter, for the
Okay.
debut patches. I'm not saying it doesn't. I guess it doesn't really do it for me because I don't like. I'm taking a risk when I'm buying into breaks. So you're taking even more of a risk when you're buying into
Right.
breaks and chasing a rookie, and then that rookie loses. And that's the most frustrating thing about the UFC is like we saw Vinicius Oliveira, what was it, a
Hmm.
week ago,
Yeah.
lose, and his card market is tanked. His card market was skyrocketing before that fight, and now it's tanked. And he's still a young, up and coming fighter, and his rookie card should not go down that much in value. But we do take some drastic up and downs in our community with card values. And I think when you're buying or chasing rookie debut patches or rookies in general, you're taking on even more risk, especially if it's in a break. So I typically just chase my guys.
Nice, man. Love to hear it.
Yeah.
Excited to see what comes in 2026. Hopefully, you can hit some other massive cards. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Anything you want to plug before we sign off?
No, Zach, I just want to say I hope everybody likes and subscribes to your channel. It's
Thank
a
you.
great channel. I love your videos, man, and I'd love to hear that you've also recently, I guess, in the past 5, 10 years, gotten into the hobby, and excited to see where it goes over the next few years. But I
Hmm.
guess if anybody wants to follow me, I'm on Instagram under Coastal Sports Cards. But just again, appreciate you having me on the channel, and hopefully I'll be back someday with another product hit to talk about.
Yes, sir. Next time you come on, you're gonna hit the product hit, and you're gonna have it in hand, baby. It's gonna be yours, and it's gonna be a much less stressful experience.
Did have the privilege of hitting this one, and
Ooh wee,
yeah, this was a good one. The 25 of
the
three of the
BMFs.
light. Yeah, the BMFs, and right when I hit that, Zach, I said spin the wheel. People were like, "Hey, you guys want to talk? Spin the wheel, spin it." I said, "Let's." I'm done. I'm done talking buyouts. I'm done
Yeah.
talking. Let's just spin it and see where it lands. And it landed on Max Holloway, my spot, and so it came home with me. Hopefully, it happens next time.
Yes, sir. Awesome, man. 777. Thanks for coming on, Mike.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Zach. Take care.